Interesting morning so far, and we've heard about a lot of the challenges the continent is facing, and we will be remiss not to talk about solutions. So this session coming now is going to be talking about the opportunities for growth and investment on the continent. And for that, it's my honor to welcome to the panel Mr. Ebenezer Onyeagwu, who is the Group MD and CEO of Zenith Bank. And a round of applause, please. I'd like to also welcome Mr. Oscar Onyema, who's the Group CEO of the Nigeria Exchange Group. So my two distinguished guests are going to be saying a few words about investment opportunities from their area, after which I'll be asking them a few questions, and I hope as you will too. So first of all, I'd like to invite you, Mr. Ebenezer Onyeagwu, to give us a few words. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's fitting to say I'm standing on the existing protocol. One day we'll get to understand who instituted this protocol, because at times you get into trouble trying to recognize protocol and missing some order of priority. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here, and it's always a difficult thing coming to speak after lunch, but I'll try to make it very brief and maybe interactive also. It's a short slide. I hope they can put it on. They can show the slides. If we are talking about African direct investment, it's important for us to understand some realities about Africa. What is it about Africa? How things are really, so that we'll be able to answer the question, really, do we need foreign direct investment? And in which sectors? Again, what do we expect to do? Even if we say we are in need of foreign direct investment, but it's not just going to fall from heaven. We also need to have a strong appeal to encourage others to come in and share in the good fortunes we have in Africa. The first is that if you look at the FDI flows, like has already been mentioned earlier, Africa's share of current FDI flows is about 5%. In fact, less than 5%, abysmally low for a continent that is rated as one of the oldest continents in the world, a continent that accounts for global population of about 18%. So the trend is the same. I think there was a speaker who even said, in terms of FDI, it's flat in Africa. If you look at it year on year, maybe in 2021, you'll notice a bit of spike in South Africa. And that was because of a one-off, I'll call it, contract transaction that happened within South Africa. So for numbers, South Africa was $42.21 billion, West Africa 13.85, Central Africa 9.41, and North Africa 9.3, East Africa 8.18. Next other critical reality for me is the depth of our capital markets. I'm glad Oscar is here. I'm sure Oscar will throw more light into it. But one thing you see is that in the Morgan Stanley Index, there is no African exchange among the developed markets. Secondly, only two African exchanges, Egypt and South Africa, are in the emerging market index. Then 6 exchanges are in the frontier market. In fact, if the news that went around a few days ago is anything to go by, that number may reduce to 5, because there was this report, we saw that Morgan Stanley Index is about to exclude Nigeria because of the challenges associated with repatriation of investment done by the FPI. And the question is, who are these FPIs? The FPIs are damaging the continent. You can't come to Africa today and leave tomorrow. You create volatility for everybody, including yourself. Like was mentioned earlier, anybody who wants to do business in Africa must be there for the long haul. Zenith Bank is 32 years this year. It was started in 1990 by our current chairman and founder, Mr. Jimovia. I started it with equivalent of $4 million. Today, 32 years after, the shareholders fund of Zenith is about $3.2 billion. So what that tells us is that, yes, if you are determined to be in Africa for the long haul, you will certainly reap the rewards and returns associated with Africa. Coming in today and leaving tomorrow doesn't help anybody. So you can see that in the JP Morgan Index, out of 54, put it this way, 54 countries we have in Africa, we can only boast of 8 exchanges in the index. Again, if you go to global share of IPOs from 2019 to 2021, among the top 20 IPOs in the world, none came from Africa. Not one single one from Africa. Instead, what you see as a percentage of IPOs, in 2019, what you have from Africa is 0.32%. 2020, Africa accounts for 0.15. 2021, 0.23. Now, in terms of share of global gross domestic product, you will notice that in terms of GDP per capita, you have Australia, New Zealand ahead with $61,000. Africa is at the bottom of the pyramid with just a paltry $2,000. There's poverty in Africa. This poverty cannot be alleviated with AIDS. It's only investment that will wake it up. Per capita income in Africa is very, very horrifying and threatening also. And when people talk about restiveness in Africa, I remember that I would say that an angry man is a hungry man is an angry man. So if per capita income we have in Africa, there are 23 countries that are rated low income, less than $1,045. Middle income, 23 countries. Upper middle income, 7. Higher income, only 1 country, and that country is Seychelles. It's a country of less than 100,000 people. So it's an outlier. Are you therefore surprised when you hear and see young Africans being buried in the Mediterranean? Because people see that it seems like there's no hope. Then, if you go to intra-African trade, what we have in intra-African trade is about 15% for Africa. Whereas in Europe, it's about 68%. In Asia, it's about 59%. So Africa is not even trading within Africa, because in some cases, Africans don't even know Africa. If anybody is thinking of what to import or looking for something you can't get in your country, what generally comes to your mind in Africa is you start thinking of somewhere in the East. You start thinking of somewhere in Europe. Even though such item could be seen in somewhere, if you are in Nigeria, you could find it in, say, Burundi. But somehow it doesn't come to your consciousness because there is a disconnection. We don't have, everybody is staying in different silos. 52 strong, solid silos that they don't see each other. We need to have a sense of harmony for us to be able to release the best of Africa before the market. What are the attractions for you to invest in Africa? Huge market, 1.3 billion people, 60% of that is below age 30. Vibrant, consuming, high energy. Because these energies are not being applied, what are they being used for? Banditry, looking for greener pasture somewhere, and people plunging and ending in the bed of the Mediterranean. Then Africa is also endowed with a lot of natural resources. It's also been mentioned by the Secretary General of AFCTA that these resources are just being exported out of Africa without value addition. We are not adding, there is no value addition to the huge mineral resources that we have in Africa. And in Africa too, you have access to 100% ownership of companies. There's been a lot of reforms which is geared towards encouraging foreign investors to come to Africa. And indeed, the growth prospect of the World Bank sees Africa as the next growth frontier for the entire globe. So for me, what should be done? Policy reforms. We need to reform the way things are done. Oscar Onyeagwu, the group CEO of NGS Holding, has done a great amount of work on bundling the exchange. Before, when you think of the exchange, you think of typically regulation. But now, Oscar is driving a resurgence in terms of promoting investment advocacy and also encouraging retail investors to come to the exchange. The expectation is that with that, we'll begin to have a lot more issues coming into the market. Then you have reforms. I can recall that in Nigeria, the Finance Act was passed. The essence of that Finance Act was to create a more enabling and more effective tax regime that is not as onerous on corporate institutions and taxpayers. We also need to consider creating special economic free trade zone. I used to be on the board of African Finance Corporation, and I think about 7 years ago, we supported the creation of the income free trade zone in Gabon. And indeed, AFC came into that through a combination of financing arrangement. There was project financing where we had to take equity in some project, and indeed, the project we took equity in, we exited in 2 years with a hefty return of not less than 40%. So these are opportunities in Africa that are waiting for people to come in, investors to come in and explore. The next thing is that we need to de-risk Africa. There have been a lot of conversation in this room around ESG. I think we need to take the conversation of ESG far deeper, maybe think of a more entrenched legislation. In Zenith Bank, what we do is we subscribe to the principles of the bottom three: planet, profit, and people. We are not going to make money at the expense of the planet and the people. Whatever opportunity we have that conflicts with this, we don't pursue it. We also subscribe to United Nations Global Compact. We are signatories to United Nations Economic Program Finance Impact that deals with the principles of responsible banking. We are signatories to Nigerian Sustainability Banking Principles and also women empowerment. What have we done with this? First, in terms of the workforce, there is gender equality. My deputy is a lady. Zenith Bank has 4 banking subsidiaries. Out of the 4 banking subsidiaries, the board of 2 of them are headed by women. One of them is Freda Duplan, who heads the board of Zenith Bank Ghana. The other one is Zenith Bank Sierra Leone. Unfortunately, Jane Jallo is not able to join us, but she's online. So those are the things we've done. We've also come up with a financing package to support women business. We provide access to funding, we provide access to market, we provide mentorship. The essence is that women businesses, we tend to undermine the capacity and potential of the women to do well. Remember one thing that women can do more than us men: they can multitask. If you want to know that, go and look at a nursing mother. You can see how they combine quite a lot of things together. So I think we believe that women should be given a chance to aspire, to become big, and let them fulfill their aspiration. So to that extent, we have the financing package, but having listened to what I've heard today, I'm going to get back going to the board to increase the amount of the package that we have. Again, in terms of ESG, all our credits are screened in line with the sustainability standard. I'm glad my colleague in Zenith UK, John Miller, is here. In most cases, the team will call me and say, John Miller won't let certain credits go because they don't meet the requirement for ESG. So we are that serious about it. But the question is, what we are doing, is it also the same? Does it apply to everybody? Do we see ESG as relevant? In our head office, we are building a 6 megawatts power. Our requirement for power is about less than 1 megawatt. And it's a hybrid engine that will use 70% gas and 30% fuel. It's also calibrated that power is produced on demand. So instead of you flaring, by so doing, we are reducing our carbon emission because we are going to dislocate about 40 generators within our head office areas in terms of the power provision that we have for the head office. So ESG, the risk in Africa, we have to look at the ESG concept. In as much as I don't subscribe to the fact that the West should expect Africa to come to the same level, but understand that Africa is embracing ESG, and it's only a matter of time we will get to where we desire to be. Then the AFCTA is important for us to recognize. I'm glad that His Excellency, the Secretary General, indicated that 44 countries out of 54 have signed on. AFCTA is going to lead to the creation of a single market for Africa. It therefore means that if you are not in Africa now, by the time you are ready, you'll probably be looking for space. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have no doubt in my mind that we also need to look at advocacy. We need to talk about the potentials of Africa. We need to talk about the good things in Africa. It is for this reason that Zenith Bank, for the past 15 years, we've continued to sponsor Inside African program. That program is geared towards showing the potentials, the possibilities, the high energy of our youth, the creativity and the resourcefulness of Africa. In terms of economic benefits, we don't get anything. But yet CNN keep increasing my bill, but we are happy to pay. We're happy to pay because we feel that somebody needs to really carry the message to the world about what exists in Africa. So I hope that the organization of this event by Ajwa, I keep challenging her, we shouldn't make it a talk show. We should come out of this session every time with actionable points, and when we come next time, we start from there and let's talk about, yes, we talked about these issues, so and so have been achieved. But in all, I believe that this is a good opportunity we should be sustained in terms of getting people to verbalize the opportunities, the potentials of Africa. Thank you very much.